There's the reservoir at 25 past 6. It's a lovely first quarter moon up there. It's gorgeous up here. So the track leads to this final gate, and then there's a little stile to get across, and now it looks like a very steep drop down to the bothy. Well, I'm here 25 past 6, and here's the bothy, and I was able to ride down there. Only joking, pushed it down. So yeah, gonna go inside now and see what we got. Ta-da! Well, here it is. Gosh, I was told it was small. I read it was small, but it's much smaller than I thought it would be. Sometimes you read about people leaving spare food or drink, anything like that. There's nothing really here. Oh, hang on. There's a saw behind the door for wood. There's a few books by the look of it. Bible, I think. There's a wood, but oh great, there's some wood. I did pick up some roadside wood, some thick sort of logs. I actually bought some kindling for Bath as well. I noticed I dropped them. I'm not surprised by the rough road I've just been along. I've dropped some of my logs, but so that's great. There's an axe there as well actually, and a shovel, some firewood, so I'll get a fire going later on. One of the tips I was given is bring a lot of tea lights along, like tea candles. They don't give off any extra warmth, but they just give that perception of sort of heat and comfort. Well, it feels quite warm in here actually. It's surprising actually. My first impression is it's quite warm in here. I think somebody's had a fire in here recently. All the way up the valley it actually seemed really sort of quite cold, and I was expecting it to be very damp here actually, so that was a bit of a surprise first impression. But hey, what a place by this waterfall. No need to go and look for firewood then. There's my bike. Better quickly get unpacked and get things organised before the darkness sets in. So I've been here about 45 minutes now. Got a nice fire sort of roaring away. Candle in the window, and I've just put my tea on to cook. It's a little solid fuel burner, so I'm just going to heat up some water, cook some pasta, drain it off, mix in a chicken curry with that, and then I've got a couple of cans of beer and some sliced peaches as my pudding. So this is the sleeping area, just up our step ladder here from the main area. Just cooking at the moment. Up the steps. When I came here I sort of noticed there's 2 foam sleeping mats, but I'd actually already bought my thermarest, so I've got my thermarest on top of the other foam mats. I bought a 3-season sleeping bag and a bag liner as well, which normally adds about another season on, because I actually really thought it'd be very damp here. I sort of pictured it, you know, being in sort of a sheltered valley, it'd be quite damp and cold. It's actually the opposite. The building really feels warm, even before I lit the fire, but even more so now. So probably a little bit over the top, but you know, better to be safe than sorry. Bought a candle up here, but I noticed there's a candle holder there, and there's actually what looks like a paraffin lamp. I went to investigate, turn it on, and it's actually an LED light, which is really good. I'm not going to overuse it because I don't know sort of whether it's rechargeable. I don't think so. There must be some batteries in there, so I don't know how much life is left, but I don't want to squander it. But you know, if you need to get up in the middle of the night, that's going to be ideal. Well, it's about 8 o'clock now, and I've had a good fire going. I've just shut the door on the fire because it's given off a lot of smoke, but it's given off a hell of a lot of heat actually. It's so cosy in here. Like I said earlier on, I'm quite surprised by just how warm and cosy it is in here actually. The tea lights definitely make a difference. I think the whole ethos of these is you don't just take, you give. So I'm going to leave all my tea lights when I go. Goes without saying you take your own rubbish, but I have used a couple of logs actually, firewood, so before I leave in the morning I'll be going across the river and seeing if I can source a few more logs to replace them with. But at the moment it's actually fantastic. It's pitch black here, just feels so isolated from the rest of the world. Yeah, so I guess one of the reasons I wanted to come up here and have my first night in the bothy is after my super randonneur around the year, which finished in August. When I sort of look back on it and reflected, some of the most memorable experiences were through the winter actually. You know, what should have on paper have been the hardest and the least pleasant, it was actually turned out to be most enjoyable actually. And like any long goal, when you sort of finish it, it's just such a relief. But within a few days I was sort of thinking like, now what, you know? So thought about it. I went off hosteling recently, arrived at a hostel on Exmoor just as it's getting dark, and I think that's what sort of sparked the idea really, sort of thinking I wonder if I could sort of have shorter but more condensed adventures during the winter. So this is what this was all about really. Maybe once a month I'll set off and have a little adventure like this, try something a little bit new, something a bit out of my comfort zone. So it's about it's only about 20 to 9, but I'm in my sleeping bag already. It's pitch black out here. Just really had a fantastic day. I'm ready to go to sleep, to be honest, and really looking forward to tomorrow, sort of exploring a little bit, and especially going back to the dam actually, but also exploring the environment around here as well, just to take it in a bit more. But yeah, getting here right at dusk was just absolutely fantastic, couldn't plan any better. So off the light, nighty night. Well, it's Tuesday morning at the bothy. Down from the sleeping area, down the ladder, down into the main area of the bothy. Got some hot water boiling away for a cup of coffee and a bit of breakfast. Really get an idea in the daylight just how sort of small this bothy is. I think I read somewhere that it's the smallest one in the country in the UK. Like I said, it's first time bothying, so I'm no expert, I don't know, but it's certainly very small. Anyway, out through the front door. It's very atmospheric here in this very steep walled valley. The mist has come down. It's a waterfall, I heard that all night. Also heard quite a bit of noise actually from the building itself. Just as it sort of cooled down and creaked and groaned a little bit, I guess probably as I heated it up with the fire as it cooled down overnight. So yeah, it wasn't completely quiet. Anyway, I've got my camera set up there to try and do a time lapse. Bothy from another angle. I just realised I've walked right in front of my time lapse, so you'll get me going in and out like a pin man. So just a brief little bit about the kit I bought on this ride. Bought 2 carried ice panniers to go on the back rack. I normally use either a gas canister or a petrol stove when I go camping. When I go bivvying, I prefer something much simpler. I just use a very simple fold up solid fuel stove. Burns off these little tablets. They last about 10 minutes or so each. Very, very simple. And the reason I prefer them bivvying is because I'm quite often on rough ground, less likely to fall over, much more stable. It's quite lightweight as well, just folds into itself. For recharging my devices, I've bought up my Technic power pack. It's a bit more sophisticated than the one I use for day rides. I think it's got 1500 milliamp hours. That doesn't mean anything to me. What I do know is it will last about 2 weeks on a camping trip. Charging everything. Today I've got it charging my Garmin, my front light, it'll do my camera, it'll do my phone. It's got multiple USB ports. When you switch it on, once it's finished charging all the devices, it'll switch itself off. Whereas a very small one I use just for day rides, charging up the Garmin, say on a 200, 300 kilometre Audax. I just give it 5-minute little charges. You do need to switch it off though, otherwise it will discharge itself. All the food and the drink I bought was at Abergavenny. Like on any camping trip, I try and stock up as close to the camp as possible, so avoid lugging all the weight. Just the 2 small pots really, one for water and one for the food. There you go, there's the tech neck. It just switched itself off. The devices had already charged overnight. That's the beauty, I could just leave it overnight and not worry about it. So anyway, that's just a little bit about the kit I bought. The other thing is, I know carrier bags are quite frowned upon these days, but I always pick one up on a camping trip when I buy my supplies. They make ideal rubbish bins, so I'll be taking away all my rubbish. There's the big water bottle there. I've crushed all the cans, put all the sort of chocolate paper rubbish inside them, so I'll be taking that as a rubbish bag when I leave. Also, I noticed someone had left a tin of butter beans, so I've left one of my bottles of water and my second Kronenbourg. I had one last night. It hit the spot. I didn't feel the need for another. I just really fancied an early night lying in my bag listening to that waterfall outside. So anyone watching this, if you drink that Kronenbourg, cheers, it's on me. Well, I've just come back from a walk upstream. I actually managed to cross it in forest to get some wood. So I've replaced the wood I used last night with another big log. Quite cold actually, so just made myself a cup of coffee. I'm using up the rest of my solid fuel to just have a little fire. Use my camping stove as a fire around the wood burner. Also just filled in the visitors book as well. I'll leave a few comments about my stay, record it, and also I think it's quite a safety precaution as well. If you're going into sort of remote areas, it's good to leave a track of where you've actually been, you know, in the very unlikely event that people need to come and find you. It's my camping stove folded up now, just doing a little bit of tidying up, cleaning. When you come to places like this, you've really got to make your own toilet and cleaning arrangements. So for cleaning, wet wipes, for toiletry purposes, pack of handy andies, and I do notice, talking of toiletry purposes, there's a shovel there, so I'll leave that to your imagination for what that's for. So just a case of starting me packing up now, and I'll be leaving soon. So I'm just about to leave the bothy now. I like to think I've left it better than when I found it. I've left some candles, replenished a bit of the firewood, actually left a bit of paper there to start a fire, plus one of the small little logs I found on my way up here. Given it a good sweep, actually added to the graffiti, left some food. Sad to be leaving, but fantastic experience. I know I'll be back. So cheerio bothy. Now I've just got to get the bike and my kit back up to the top of the hill. I'm going to take the bike up separately, probably carry it. Then I noticed that there's more defined steps that way. I didn't spot them last night because the light was closing in quickly, so I'll try and carry the bags up that way. Anyway, here it goes. So done it, I've got to the top, back onto the bridleway. Have to say, it was a lot easier this morning. I took the panniers off the bike, wheeled it up the track which sort of hugs this fence and then goes down to the river in a sort of S-bend. Last night it was actually quite difficult because with the panniers on the back all the weight was unevenly distributed. Even with the brakes on, it was just sliding all the way down, whereas this morning I was able to sort of pretty much carry it up halfway, go back, get my pannier bags, come up a much more direct way. It's steeper, but there's rocks embedded in the hills, so they sort of act as steps. Got the bags up here, then went and got the bike back for the final bit. Even that stile last night was actually quite difficult to get the bike over. I was tired, having said that. So what I would say is, one of the considerations is your footwear is going to be quite important. So I use sort of touring type shoes which have got quite a lot of tread on. They also have the pedal cleat recessed, so you can still use them as cycling shoes, but they act more like walking shoes, so they're dual purpose. That's worth bearing in mind. The whole idea of this really was to sort of evaluate to see whether you could take a non-specialised bike to a bothy, and I would sort of say it succeeded. One of the things I did read in the guest book, I was going through other people's comments, was a couple of things really. There were other bike packers that had been, so bike packers with specialist sort of mountain bikes and mountain biking ability is definitely doable. They do come here. I've proved that it's doable on a hybrid bike. I would say it's doable on a conventional touring bike, just bear in mind the footwear. You will have to push it quite a bit, so that's going to be a consideration. Probably when I got this bothy, what I should have done last night was actually gone down on foot and done a bit of a recce, because I would have discovered the steps and the footpath then, and I would probably taken the panniers off last night, but it was getting dark very quick. I just wanted to get down there. The other thing about the guest book is I was going by the dates really. They seem to sort of correspond with weekends. So the last entry in the book was over 10 days ago. So that's sort of, it's a bit of food for thought, what risk you're prepared to take. I mean, for example, if I broke my leg up here, there's no mobile phone signal. That makes me realise I'm very unlikely to be found, so it sort of plays into sort of like the chances I'm likely to take really. So anyway, going to load the bike up now, ride back along the bridleway, stop at the dam, have a good look round there. Didn't get any chances to film myself riding along the bridleway last night, so I'll try and do some this morning. Well, I'm most of the way back to Chepstow now. One thing did occur to me as a bit of an afterthought, because I was coming out into the wild by myself. I did actually take the precaution of telling my wife Linda exactly where I was going. I wrote down the name of the bothy, the grid reference and everything, and gave her a sort of rough indication of what time to expect me back tonight. So anyway, I stopped at Abergavenny to have a late breakfast, and I just phoned her up just to let her know I was back on tarmac, and just gave her a rough idea of what time I expect to be back in Bath this evening. So that really is it now. Till next time.